And today we'll be presenting about Chapter 6 involving emotional or behavioral disorders.
For our introduction, basically the key points that we're going to talk about are characteristics, prevalence, biological factors, environmental factors, identification and assessment, and educational approaches.
And now we're going to take a closer look at all of these main points.
Alright, so should you cut that?
Idea kind of gives in our book by Heward is, according to Idea, a child with emotional or behavioral disorders cannot have relationships with peers or teachers and may display inappropriate behavior in a normal circumstance. Basically stating that it's more difficult for students with emotional or behavioral disorders to have more of the interactions and some of the easy talk, that we don't even think twice about. And as teachers, we need to be able to recognize these students, to be able to help them grow academically, but also socially, to form those relationships with peers that are so very important. And then some characteristics that we're going to take a look at now is there's a belief that children will eventually grow out of their emotional and behavioral disorders. That's what some believe, that they start out when they're younger, but if they get the appropriate attention and help that they do need, they will be able to eventually grow out of their disorder. And then also, parents, teachers, and professionals can target social and self-determination skills to really help that student build up their self-esteem and to encourage and help them develop relationships with others as well as the teacher, because if there's a good foundation with that, a lot more is going to be able to be accomplished in the student's life, and the student is going to be able to approach someone if they do have something on their mind that they need to talk about. And then some externalizing behaviors. As you can see, there's kind of an extensive list, but this is kind of a list that you want to kind of look for in students to determine, if they do have an emotional or behavioral disorder, or maybe they may be diagnosed with one yet, but there's a good chance because of results of these. And as you can see, they may get out of their seats, they may yell, talk out loud, disturb their peers, hit or fight, ignore the teacher, complain, argue, steal, lie, destroy property. They may not comply with directions, they may have temper tantrums, they may cry, and other factors as well. And these are some of the things that we do need to look for as teachers, just to be aware and also to be able to help that student and to help them grow more academically. And then some internalizing behaviors, some of the ones that we don't necessarily see as much, but are more some of like the nonverbals that we may not see, that we also need to be aware of. As teachers, we need to be on the outlook for how students are doing, not only academically, but we also need to see how they're doing socially and emotionally, because that is a big factor into how their day is going to develop, as well as how they may develop academically. And some of them are, they may seldom play with others their own age. So if you see a student that may be sitting by themselves and not engaging with others, they may not have the skills to make friends or have fun. So again, if you see them by themselves, that's when that interaction comes in to try and figure out, what the student is feeling or what may be wrong, to maybe help develop those skills to interact with their peers. They may retreat to daydreams and fantasies, so they may be looking off in class, looking out the window, or just dreaming about certain things. And then some children are fearful of things for no reason. So all of a sudden you may be walking down the hall and the child might start having some externalizing behaviors, as we saw before, and you may not know why. So it's kind of our job as teachers to find out that core reason of why, and it may be because they're scared of something for some reason, but we need to approach that with a positive attitude to figure out to help that student. And then for prevalence, we'll go to RJ.
We're going to talk about prevalence. In an epidemiological study, 50% of students that have emotional or behavioral problems, there's 8.3% that have prevalence. Typically, preschoolers will have behavioral or emotional problems. Emotional and behavioral disorders are ranked the 4th largest disability category in the nation when it comes to disabilities. And not all students are receiving the education they need. And basically with that is that teachers and other social workers are not able to identify the students that may need the special attention and the education for students with behavioral or emotional disorders. Out of all students that have emotional or behavioral problems, 3/4 of them are boys. And boys typically show symptoms of antisocial and aggressive, and of being aggressive. And basically, because they're antisocial, they're going to be alone, and when they have temper tantrums, they're going to be more aggressive than other students. Girls who also have emotional and behavioral problems will show signs of anxiety and social withdrawal, and with certain things, they'll show anxiety, and they'll have social withdrawal from their friends, peers, and other classmates. Students in juvenile detention facilities. 1/3 of all students in juvenile detention facilities qualify for special education, but are not caught with it. Nearly half of the students were classified with emotional problems, and that's just from a study. There's still more that we do not know about. Some causes are biological and environmental. For the biological factor, there are brain disorders like trauma and other issues. And basically off of that, they'll have schizophrenia, and schizophrenia will cause an emotional behavioral disorder. With temperament, there's inborn biological influence, basically from a gene from a mother or a father will traumatize a baby and cause the baby to have emotional or behavioral problems. Children with inhibited temperament, they'll typically play alone, and that's when teachers start to understand when the situation's happening that the student may have a behavioral or emotional problem. Environmental factors. There are 3 primary factors that cause disorders in antisocial behavior. One of them is social rejection from peers. Basically, peers that are rejecting the student, making fun of him, calling him names, won't let them hang out with them. That's one of the factors that can cause antisocial behavior. Another one is adverse rearing environments. From that, the environment of the school, including teachers not showing the students what they need, the necessities, the caring. And then another cause would also be aggressive patterns entering the school. When that's happening, the students acting more wild, more mischievous, and by that's a sign that teachers need to find to show that they can find antisocial behavior. They display signs of antisocial behavior with characteristics of being aggressive, being alone, and not being able to talk to other students as well. Longer exposure to a bad environment will increase the developmental of bad results. So the more they're around the negativity, the more they're going to have more outbursts, more emotional problems. Parents and peers need to take part in emotional behavior problems as well. Parents who don't show the loving care, as well as teachers and other people who help the student, will have an impact on the student and may cause emotional problems. Pain control is when the student may use temper tantrums or aggressiveness to the teacher to get what he or she wants. When the teacher tells the student to do the homework and he replies and yells no, the teacher may, in response, tell him to settle down, and by that he may throw something or be more disruptive in the class. And that's how the students may also have environmental issue or environmental factors. Identification and assessment. There are 4 questions that people may ask. Who needs help? Who really needs help? How will they need help? And how will they be issued the help? For screen testing, there are child behavior checklists. They have a checklist of how they act, and they check them off if they act that way or if they don't act that way. And there's a behavioral and emotional checklist as well, which also pertains to the child behavior checklist. To go on with identification and assessment, there are functional behavior assessments, why the students act the way they do. 2 major types of behavioral functions is getting something from the teacher that they want or getting something that they don't want. Behavior intervention plan, or BIP, is understanding the student and why the student is acting in a certain way. Indirect functional behavior assessment, or people are asked what to do in a certain situation, which is indirect because they're only going off their own knowledge. Descriptive functional behavioral assessment, observe the child under normal circumstances. Functional analysis, Test the students to test the behavior and test the observer's hypothesis. 2/3 of students cannot pass exams for their grade level. When compared to other students with disabilities, students will most likely have a D or an F. 1 in 3 students graduate from high school with emotional or behavioral disorders, and 60% or more students will not graduate high school because they have not received the proper treatment. Their intelligence will be affected. They'll have a lower IQ than the normal. For juvenile delinquency, 13.3% more are likely to be arrested during their school career who have emotional behavior disorders. Juvenile arrest rates increase in junior high more than elementary or high school. Half of juveniles are repeated offenders. Some social skills and interpersonal relationships they are judged by peers and have difficulty in keeping friends. And they also have lower levels of empathy for other situations.
What we're going to look at is educational approaches. And as you can see here, for some curriculum goals, there is a website that will greatly help aid in some testing and kind of gets more of an idea of what the testing that happens with the student. And we'll go to that now. And here's the website that it'll take you to. It goes through a test at a glance, so you can see the test code, the time, and as you go through you can see it explains the test and more examples and everything. And as you keep scrolling down, it has sample test questions, which all of you are welcome to do. And then at the bottom of the test questions, it also has the answer, so it kind of explains as to why that's the answer to that question. So this is a test to kind of look at in reference to understand more about the testing that involves with behavioral and emotional disorders. So that's another link that you can look at that is provided to have more information about the topic. And then also, besides the website, we also have here an article that you can also look at, which really dives into talking more about managing the classroom for teachers, some of the approaches that we should look to for future research, and it really goes into detail. And as you flip through here, we've made some notes, some general practices that they do, and just some graphs and everything that you can look at. So this is a great reference to look at in reference to working with students with emotional and behavior disorders, because it is crucial that we work with them and understanding more about them and different ways that we can learn from others and incorporate into our own classrooms. And then there's some academic skills. Students should take similar courses to their students, because we should not limit the students who have emotional and behavioral disorders. They may be very intelligent and can do just as much as their peers. So we really want them to encourage them to take similar courses, your reading, your writing, your math, gym class, take all similar courses to really get that interaction with the peers, to really try and spread the awareness, and really get them involved so they have that involvement with peers, but also to build those relationships that are so strong in the foundation of learning. And then there's also systematic instruction, which should be like a core for helping these students learn. And through systematic instruction, what happens is teachers take it step by step. They take it smaller steps teaching students, but then they take it, they take it back and they say, hey, let's stop. What did you learn? Kind of understand what the students learned. And then they also really look for active engagement with students, because active engagement can really show what a student is learning. So the active engagement is very crucial to that. And teachers cannot limit what students learn or provide information as an easier format. So teachers, even though they may have a student with emotional or behavioral disorders, they can't just limit, what they're supposed to learn. Hey, you take the easy route out, or, just only do this part of the assignment. They can't do that, because that's not helping the student any bit, and it's not helping them engage in their academic needs. And social skills. Here's some steps to success in a general classroom for a teacher. They control the temper and control conflict situation with peers, control temper and conflict situations with adults, so controlling the temper with the interaction with peers as well as adults. Follows and complies with directions, making sure students understand what is expected of them and really enforcing that, and easily makes transitions from one classroom activity to another, because especially in the elementary level, when you're transitioning, especially going to a different classroom, let's say for art or gym or something, you really want that smooth transition. And then also social skills, curricula and training programs. Here's a couple examples: taking part, introducing social skills to children, the prepared curriculum, teaching pro-social competencies, and the Walker social curriculum, which includes accepts. And there are 6 steps to have a successful school-wide behavior support system, because not only is it important to have that strong relationship with the child and encourage them in the classroom, school-wide is also very important because those peers are going to be around them for possibly years to come, depending on the school district and how big it is. So some of the 6 steps are: behavioral expectations are stated. So clearly all students know, not just the emotional and behavioral disorders, what is expected of them with their behavior. Behavioral expectations are defined and taught. So not only are they explained to the students, but they're taught how they're supposed to do it and it's expected of them. And appropriate behaviors are acknowledged. So let's say if a student does something well and they get a check mark for the day, and after so many check marks they might get a star for the day, which would be their reward. Behavioral errors are corrected proactively. So if something goes wrong or they are mistaken in their actions, then teachers take the approach of, they don't do it necessarily in a totally negative way, but they do approach it and say, hey, you were wrong, but they kind of want to turn that around into a learning experience so the student does not repeat the action. Program evaluations and adaptations are data-driven and made by a team. So the evaluations are not only made by the teacher, but the school-wide, the faculty and everyone to figure out, hey, this didn't work, or maybe we need to do something else to make this work even better. And individual student support systems are integrated with school-wide discipline. So the peers are very important to each other, and when one peer sees that maybe their other friend is not doing something that they should be, they can help them out and say, hey, you know, we can't do this, or that support system is really there to kind of help with the school-wide discipline, because normally one action can follow another, so if good actions are installed, then that will greatly aid in having a successful school system. Peer-mediated support. Peers are able to help their fellow classmates, not only through academics, but many other areas as well. You know, they're able to be friends, and a lot of where they do a lot of their growing and learn a lot of things. So the support that they have from peers is very important. A teacher must encourage cohesiveness for students to work with each other. So although there may be some students in the classroom that, let's say, they don't like working together too well, having that cohesiveness and even maybe forcing them to work together in a positive way, even though they may not want to, may bring out a positive aspect just to try and get that cohesiveness. And group contingencies is a way to promote positive behavior through providing rewards and privileges if a group meets a certain goal. So kind of like I said before with the check marks on the board and they get a star for the day, you know, really showing that they were rewarded, you know, and that they did something right can really help students to say, hey, you know, we did this right, we could maybe do it again. So having, you know, peers is really important because it's a lot of where students learn from each other. And strong student-teacher relationships is extremely important, because if the teacher does not have a relationship with the student, a lot is not able to be accomplished. So when a teacher ignores the negative behavior a student portrays, it can often lead to downfall. If a teacher just ignores it, then it's not going to be corrected, and often other students might pick up on it. And it doesn't show good classroom management, and a lot of things throughout the day may not be able to be accomplished. So it can really hurt the curriculum that the teacher's trying to do if they really ignore the behavior. And then empathetic relationship, a teacher recognizes the nonverbal cues from a student and is able to understand the student's needs. So as we were talking earlier, understanding like the nonverbal cues that may be going on with the student emotionally, you know, something may have happened at home, or they may just be having a bad day. Understanding those and recognizing those students' needs can really help the student and the teacher build a foundation in respect and trust for each other, so they're able to talk to each other and figure out, hey, having a bad day, you know, maybe we can help them out in this way, and then also where to build from there. And education placement alternatives. Creating a good environment is often difficult. I mean, you can't really have a perfect environment for all students. There's always going to be some drifts and everything in it. And students often perform better, although, like I was talking before, creating that and, you know, having those 6 steps, you know, to try and build to that good classroom management can help students perform better. You know, it helps them build with their peers, learn more, and also to have that interaction and that academic time. And students must be closely evaluated before being put into a general education classroom. So as you can see before the test we kind of had, they go through a testing process for their emotional and behavioral disorder before they're placed in the classroom. That way the teacher knows, the special education teacher knows, and the faculty knows how that student's going to be able to interact, but also to help prepare that student to be able to interact with their peers and creating a good environment for them to be able to be academically successful. And educational recommendations. One thing is to discourage unwanted behavior. So one way to do that is to specifically identify the behavior that's going on, create a baseline of the observed behavior, so recognize what's going on, examine the baseline closely, don't just make assumptions because assumptions are never always true. So examine it very closely, evaluate a plan that you're going to put in place. It's okay to talk with others to see what's going to happen, and then also enforce the outcome after you develop the plan for the child to really discourage that unwanted behavior and create that positive classroom energy. And challenges and achievements and advocacy. Intervention is key to success. So going back to kind of what we talked about throughout the presentation, really intervening and getting a core relationship and everything with the student will really help them academically, because the intervention, helping them and getting ahead on it early will help them more down the road. And like we said earlier, they might grow out of it, which will really benefit them in the long run. And now we have a couple links to a YouTube video. So we're going to show one of those right now so you have an idea, a better look at emotional and behavioral disorders.
To avoid a task because it is too difficult or anxiety-provoking. Some students who are having a difficult time in school may deliberately misbehave in order to get suspended because being in school is too painful an experience. Federal law requires that in the case of a child whose behavior impedes the child's learning or that of others, the IEP team must consider the use of positive behavioral interventions and supports and other strategies to address that behavior. It's important to understand the causes of behavior before developing a plan to address it. If the child is having behavior, you can request that the school do a functional behavioral assessment. This is designed to help the team determine the causes of the child's behavior and assist the IEP team in developing a plan tailored to meet the student's needs.
In conclusion, teachers need to understand students with emotional or behavioral disorders. Understanding the characteristics, the prevalence, the biological factor, the environmental factors, the identification and assessment, and the educational approaches is a huge part in what teachers need to do to help students out. Students are able to be successful, and it comes down to teachers and parents.
It's question time!